Run it up.
Hey guys, it's Jay. Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson did an interview yesterday on the Tucker Carlson show, and it was over 2 hours long. So I'll try to sum it up for you guys. Anyways, I don't know if you know the history, but they both couldn't stand each other. I mean, they were bashing each other up until the interview yesterday. Um, he was calling Tucker like part of the CIA, what his dad was, and he was saying like Tucker's a phony, part of the Fed, and then Tucker thought Nick was a Fed, and he was calling him a little weird gay kid. I mean, this is how contentious it was for the interview. Regardless, they start off going over Nick's his origin story, and it turns out that he started being political when he was in high school, and ironically, he actually worked did work with PragerU, which is a very pro Zionist organization. He started off as a libertarian, and he hated Trump's guts when he started off. But then after he started hearing Trump talk about immigration and stuff, he said he had never realized it because he's from a suburb of 95% white people in Chicago. So that opened his eyes. And actually, the funny thing he shared, he said he's never told anyone until that interview, was the fact that he used to listen to Mark Levin all the time, every day. And Mark Levin is like the one who kind of sparked this whole racial purity thing in America. Was one episode Mark was saying, is it a good idea? Do people think it's a good idea to have the country not be majority white? And ironically, that's where he said he started all that. Anyways, when he was in college, though, he started doing his Twitter thing, and he basically became not popular, but he was doing debates with other people, and that's where he met some girl named Cassie Dillon, which became really good friends with him. And because of some debate he was doing, he got recognized by her. Long story short, he decided to join Right Side Broadcasting, which is a Christian news network. And while he was there, it was interesting because he said that he was there not that long, but he started asking questions just in general about Jewish and Israel, the whole thing. And he said at the time he only had like 100 followers on Twitter, and somehow Ben Shapiro, got wind of it. And the reason he got wind of it is because this girl Cassie Dillon told Ben that Nick's an up and comer and blah blah blah. Anyway, so I guess what happened was Nick messaged uh, uh, Ben about how come they never talk anything about Israel and stuff like that. And then I guess Ben took that tweet or whatever and published it and just started going off on about Nick. And Nick said that threw him for a loop because he had no clue why. I mean, he was a nobody, he said. Regardless, it got to a point where he actually got fired from Right Side Broadcasting because of the pressure from Daily Wire and Ben Shapiro. And that's basically what sums up how he started. Eventually, he was betrayed by Cassie Dillon. She cut him off. Everyone cut him off, and they were like really good friends. And I guess he pissed her off because he was asking questions about Jewish people in Israel. And he lost all his friends, he said. And that sums up what he was, the origins of him. I mean, he did drop out of college after he got fired from Right Side. He was in a downward spiral, I guess. And that's how the interview started, and basically. So from there, Tucker was asking him about Joe Kent because Joe Kent and Nick, they don't like each other. And Tucker's like really, really good friends with Joe Kent, the politician. And Nick said that when he was starting off, he had like his little, not a big following, but he had Reuters at that time. And he contacted Joe Kent's office and offered his services, and his services to help Joe Kent get elected and win. And even at the time, he started becoming kind of controversial. So he told Joe Kent that if he doesn't have to even have to acknowledge really Nick or anything, because he thought Joe was a good guy and he wanted him to get elected. He said, you don't have to say whatever you want, just don't disavow me. And so they worked together. I mean, I guess he helped him until the same old. So one day, I guess Joe betrayed him and started calling out Nick and talking about his views on religion and race, and just kind of like threw him under the bus. And that was like the end of that deal, and that's why Nick started going off about Joe Kent. He felt betrayed, and I guess he get probably used to it by then. But he helped. I guess he helped him a lot. Him and his groypers were going door to door, getting people to vote for Joe Kent, and then got backstabbed. So that's where that goes. And then they also talk about MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and the whole issue with her. And I guess like with her, he knew that he had a conference one time, and MTG visited the conference, and he kind of thought they were on not bad terms, or whatever. But whatever happened, MTG start kind of doing the same thing he said like Joe Kent was doing, where she was saying she didn't know that she didn't know that it was his conference when she went to it, and she started throwing him under the bus, and that's why he was mad at her. So So it seemed that he just kept getting attacked by everyone because of the questions he was asking. I mean, asking about, why should someone have dual citizenship, which got him in hot water with Ben Shapiro, Cassie Dillon, and then that also got Joe Kent to turn on him and MTG, according to him. So that's kind of like his origin, why he became so like the way he is, like determined, I should say. But then he goes into the whole Trump and Kanye West dinner, and he said that Kanye West and Trump was his favorite people on earth. I mean, they were his heroes. So it was very surreal to go to the White House or Mar-a-Lago and have dinner. Actually, he said that Kanye West is a very shy person, so him and Trump are doing the talking, which is kind of weird. Regardless, he said, like, at the time he did like Trump because he started off hating him until he started listening to what Trump had to say. But at the dinner, there's something that Trump told him, I guess. Like, he said it was just very personable, and that's what made him like go all out MAGA hat. I mean, all that stuff. He said, and then he said he really admired the fact that Trump said if the Republican Party didn't let him run as a Republican, he'd run as an independent and blow the whole thing down, and basically crush the Republican Party so they can't win. And I know that sounds crazy, but he said he liked it because he thought that's what needed to happen for real things to change to happen. So that's when he went 100% MAGA. And from then on, he just was wearing the hat. He talks about how he wore the hat everywhere, got in trouble. Everywhere he went, people go up to him, and it was a lot of shit. Anyways, not much more to that. I mean, that was the same dinner, by the way, that Trump got really grilled about for having a so-called like they were calling him a Nazi, anti-Semitic person. Anyways, regardless, he just went over that. I thought it was important to, how he what made him so pro-Trump at the time and what made a difference for him. And then he also goes into, and Tucker and Nick also go into the fact that they each thought each other was a Fed. Nick, the whole thing about Tucker lying about his dad being CIA, and then I guess he got caught lying, saying he didn't know until after the fact, after his dad died, and Nick found out that that wasn't true. So he started thinking Tucker's a Fed, and they both thought each other was a Fed. And Tucker thought he was a Fed because the way he was so like wasn't anti-Israel like he is. He was so anti-Jewish, and he thought that like Nick was there to make it to where anyone else who talks about Israel or the Jewish people like guilt by association. So if Tucker and like other reputable journalists bring an issue up about Israel, they'll let Nick, say what he wants about Jewish people and don't attack him because they'll just connect Tucker and other journalists to the crazy old Nick, like the town drunk or something. And that's why Tucker thought he was a Fed, because like Nick was too much into it, the Jewish part, rather than like just the reasons like why he doesn't support Israel, which is like war, it's not good for America. So he thought that. And he also thought Nick was a Fed because Nick never got arrested for J6. And he was one of the guys like Ray Epps who said, let's go on, let's get in there, let's go in there. So that's kind of how it started. And I mean, they don't think that anymore about each other. They both kind of cleared the air. And it was, I guess everyone thinks everyone's a Fed because everyone's paranoid because the government keeps screwing people over. But they didn't go too much into it. It's just basically what you probably already heard. Also, towards the end of the interview, he says that he's not hopeful for the future. He does think things are like irredeemable, irreversible. He was going over the fact that Charlie Kirk was killed like that, which was bad enough. And then he said the fact that people were celebrating like the way they were because of another guy getting murdered and shot in the way he did. He is not hopeful for the future, and he thinks that like civil war is inevitable. That's basically what he said. He doesn't. He thinks the two opposing sides will never be able to meet halfway or come together. It's just going to get worse from here. He doesn't. He says he's not hopeful. He basically said that the only how we can be successful is if one side crushes the other, like to smithereens, because he doesn't think there's enough room for two opposing sides like that. And I guess statements like that, maybe people, um, why he's so controversial, but and the fact that also that Nick was going as hard as he was against Joe Kent, which Tucker believes to be an amazing person, also made him think it was a Fed. And there's other things they went into, which I'm pretty sure you probably don't really want to hear, or I mean, yeah, you don't want to hear. It's probably not important, but Nick, gives his theories about porn and why it's bad, and he thinks it's a contributor to like somehow like dampening people's thoughts and minds, like dumbing them down, basically, just like SSIDs and stuff like that. The psychedelic medicines. He just equates it as it being bad, and anyways, and then he goes into the fact that he was almost killed by a nut job with a gun. Um, I guess the SPLC, which is an organization, docs his house, a picture of his house online. And that was when Nick was in this, like right, starting to become very controversial. So people were coming over his house for a long time trying to get at him. He had to get private security, but I mean, even forced him out of his house for a week at a hotel because it was getting really bad. But because of that docs, eventually when Nick came back and everything died down, a short while later, he was doing a live show because that's where he does his shows at his house. He was doing a live show, and then he saw his ring camera go out, or go something set it off like a motion. He saw a guy with a gun, and he said he continued doing his show because he didn't want to, like, I guess he's saying he doesn't want to like give up that he knows. And his producer called the cops, and then the cops got there, but the guy was gone. But later he heard gunshots, and he tried to go see what happened after a while. And the cops told him not to go outside, stay inside. And ironically, which is kind of weird, they just left. They never actually came back and told him what happened or nothing. And he found out later that the guy that was there had already killed 3 people before he went to Nick's house, which was a friend of his friend's sister, and his friend's mother. I guess it was some drug deal gone wrong. He thought this friend of his screwed him over on some drugs, and so he went on a killing spree with them. Well, killed them, and he went to Nick's house directly after that. And then when the cops came, he also mentioned that this guy took off and went inside some neighbor's house and killed their 2 dogs. Then finally, the cops caught up to him, and they shot him in the face. He's dead. But it was kind of weird though, because like, how could the cops just not tell him anything? I mean, it was weird. Um, and yeah, he talks about that a little bit. But he was, you know, because of all this bullshit, like tension between left and right, kind of like what I say sometimes. They get us against each other so we don't pay attention to the big picture. Because if we consolidate our numbers together and our just the populace, we can beat them, but they don't want that, and that's why they want to split us in half. So basically, it's what you see is what you get with that interview. It was nothing like breakthrough, or it wasn't anything like that. It was just them. Basically, it's like two friends or something trying to catch up, and they ended the interview on good terms. It seemed like it, and that was it. Basically, I mean, a couple other tidbits, but I'm sure you don't want to watch 2 hours just for a few minutes extra of the interview. So, anyways, if you guys don't mind, leave me a thumbs up and take care and have a good day.